There is now a danger that has become a threat to us all. It is a deadly disease and there is no known cure.
In 1987, the British government launched a major public information campaign with the slogan, "AIDS, don't die of ignorance." The advertisement named AIDS Mondelez was widely spread during the 1980s. It aroused people's awareness against HIV, but also bred HIV stigma. 30 years later, HIV is not a death sentence, but stigma is still bothering people living with HIV.
My name is Stephen Hart. I am 46 years old. I've had HIV since 2006.
My name is Roland Chesters and I've been living with HIV since 2006.
It's over 20 years since the introduction of life-saving, free and effective HIV treatment in the UK. For people who have been diagnosed with HIV for many years, the virus itself is no longer a vital problem for them, but stigma around it still negatively impacts various aspects of their lives.
A few years later, I decided that to mark World AIDS Day, which is on the 1st of December every year, I would organise an event, bring in some external speakers from Turns Against Trust, which is the biggest UK HIV charity. And I put posters up around the offices announcing this event and saying on it that I was organising it because I'm a colleague living with the condition. Posters were defaced, had graffiti written on them. Some of them were slashed with a knife or some scissors. Some of them were torn down and thrown on the floor and walked on. And that shocked me, that people could feel so angry about such an issue. And I felt angry that people hadn't had the courage to pick up the phone, and my phone number was on the posters, and talk to me so that I could perhaps educate, explain and inform. But no, the response and reaction is to lash out. And that is unacceptable.
When I was first diagnosed, I thought my life was over. I just was very scared, and I didn't think I would be here 12 years later, you know, so it was a very scary and dark time for me. I didn't put that I was HIV positive on YouTube for a year. After I was doing YouTube for a year and I didn't do anything, and then eventually I said, it's time to tell, you know, my YouTube audience that I have HIV. And a lot of people were very supportive, but one person sent me an email and said that I should kill myself and that there's no place for me for this on this earth, and that I was disgusting. And that was the first time I'd had such open, real, you know, hateful stigma. You know, so that was hard for me. It's not as hard now, and it doesn't come very often, but it still does come occasionally, you know. And I know my friends who are YouTubers or friends who are positive that work as advocates and things, that they some of the things that they've, you know, I have a good friend who I was with at the weekend, and people tell her to kill herself all the time, you know. It's just so many hateful comments, you know.
Jimmy was living with HIV for just 4 years. He didn't encounter the stigma, but he believes there is still stigma around, especially behind the computer.
There is still stigma around, definitely. Talking digitally online, whether that's through dating apps, whether that's through social media, there is a large amount of stigma, and it's very easy when you're behind a screen. You feel, if you're behind a screen, you can feel empowered or more to the point protected. If you want to write something nasty, it's not going to come back at you because it's on a device, it's not in real person. And that can have a significantly negative effect on people who are HIV positive. My partner gets quite a lot of stigma online from educating people, from people that have turned around in the past and gone, oh, you're HIV positive, why are you still alive? Why are you? Why are you still talking to me? Why are you interacting? I mean, he's got thousands of different examples.
HIV stigma not only affects personal life, but also affects the process of stop HIV. Getting tested and taking treatment early are very important to stop HIV. According to Terence Higgins Trust, the biggest HIV charity in the UK, stigma is the major barrier to get people take treatment.
A majority of people living with HIV, certainly in the UK, are now on treatment. But there are some who do avoid engagement with health services and also engagement with services in general, and a lot of that comes from the stigma in society about how someone is treated when they disclose that they have HIV. That is a real barrier. It takes us a lot of time to build up trust with someone who's living with HIV, to get them to engage with services, but I think we do quite a good job of it these days. But the main problem is how HIV is thought of in general society by people who by the people in the street, really. People still think that someone living with HIV is going to die soon and they're going to infect everybody and things like this, and none of that is true.
In 1980s, being HIV positive or AIDS was seen as a killer, but these days, that's not the case. Even there is still no cure about HIV, the medical treatment has made great progress. The test became easily and the virus could be controlled.
Undetectable means untransmissible. So once we get somebody started on HIV treatment, what the medicines do, they stop the virus reproducing in the body. So when it gets to a certain level, it's what's called undetectable. So when we do the blood tests and we find out that they're undetectable, that means that after, if they're on treatment for a period of 6 months, they're undetectable, they can't pass on the virus to anybody, which is a massive change. And this is new research that's coming out all the time, making big changes, not just the way people are living their lives of people with HIV, but also reducing transmission of HIV as well.
For people who was newly diagnosed with HIV, stigma is a very terrible thing.
If you're newly diagnosed, or if you're struggling with your diagnosis, the impact that can have, it's terrible. It can really shake you up. And I've done some peer mentoring with a number of people who have felt that backlash, who have been scared to date, who have been scared to have sex again with anyone else, who have been scared to not talk to anybody about their HIV status because they're scared of how people will react to it, or they've already had experience of people reacting very negatively, and it's generally through online dating apps.
During July in 2018, over 20 events have been taken place across London as part of the first AIDS History and Culture Festival.
I felt, because the themes of AIDS are so universal and so huge, art and studying history and creativity were some of the best ways of speaking about something that's not really spoken very much about in the West anymore, especially in the UK. So it's reminding everyone of those people who have died, to remind people of the achievements where people on medication can't pass on HIV today if they're undetectable, and also to remind the world that AIDS is not over. In many countries like Russia, I'm not sure the situation in China, but in India, South America, Sub-Saharan Africa, AIDS is a major killer, and we need to do something about it.
HIV isn't a hot topic recently, but we still need to think about it. Reduce HIV stigma, we still have a long way to go.
I'm diabetic as well, so nobody ever questions or judges me on being a diabetic, and it would be great that HIV could be, on the same level as diabetes, that nobody would say, how did you get it? Did you do this? And, straight away you can hear the judgment, It would be nice that we would get to that point in one day. So I I think positively and say yes, I hope so one day.